Remote surveillance picked feeds from several Astra Militarum training installations on Terra, and select fortress worlds present a consistent pattern when analysed over extended time intervals. The recordings display formations of human soldiers advancing through live fire exercises conducted under unusually strict environmental parameters. Atmospheric pressure, temperature fluctuations, and simulated battlefield hazards are calibrated beyond the normal standards used for standard Imperial Guard regiments. Observers reviewing the recordings note that these troops demonstrate a level of coordination and reaction time that significantly exceeds the expected human baseline within the Imperium's military structure. Independent reports from the Adeptus Administratum confirm that casualty rates during these training cycles remain unusually high compared to conventional Imperial Guard induction programs. Yet logistical projections indicate that the units produced from these facilities maintain a disproportionately high operational success rate once deployed to active war zones. This statistical anomaly has been the subject of repeated internal reviews. The conclusion documented by Administratum auditors is that the cost of producing such soldiers is justified by their consistent battlefield performance and reliability in high-risk operations. Eyewitness testimonies collected from Astra Militarum officers stationed alongside these formations describe troops equipped with specialised armour patterns and compact high-energy weaponry not commonly distributed to standard infantry regiments. Reports frequently note their rapid insertion tactics, disciplined silence during movement, and the absence of hesitation when operating in environments classified as near suicidal for conventional forces. After cross-referencing picked recordings, casualty logs, recruitment data, and multiple field reports spanning several centuries, Administratum catalogues identify the soldiers in question as members of a highly specialised Imperial formation known collectively as the Tempestus Scions. Eyewitness testimonies collected from Astra Militarum officers stationed alongside these formations describe troops equipped with specialised armour patterns and compact high-energy weaponry not commonly distributed to standard infantry regiments. Reports frequently note their rapid insertion tactics, disciplined silence during movement, and the absence of hesitation when operating in environments classified as near suicidal for conventional forces. After cross-referencing picked recordings, casualty logs, recruitment data, and multiple field reports spanning several centuries, Administratum catalogues identify the soldiers in question as members of a highly specialised Imperial formation known collectively as the Tempestus Scions. The Tempestus Scions represent the elite stormtrooper forces of the Astra Militarum, functioning as highly trained shock infantry deployed in situations where ordinary Imperial Guard regiments would either fail or suffer catastrophic losses. Their existence reflects a deliberate effort by the Imperium of Man to produce soldiers capable of executing surgical strikes, rapid planetary assaults, and targeted eliminations of strategic threats. Their origins trace back to the Imperial Schola Progenium system, an institution responsible for raising and educating the orphaned children of Imperial servants. Across the Imperium of Man, the Schola Progenium operates numerous academies tasked with shaping these youths into future servants of the Imperium's various branches. Among the many career paths offered through these institutions, the most physically capable and mentally resilient candidates are selected for advancement into the Militarum Tempestus, the organisation responsible for training Tempestus Scions. The early lives of most Tempestus Scions begin under circumstances shaped by loss. The Schola Progenium primarily recruits children whose parents died while serving the Imperium. These parents may have been officers of the Astra Militarum, administrators within the Adeptus Administratum, priests of the ecclesiarchy, or agents serving the many other bureaucratic and military arms of the Imperium. Their offspring are taken into the care of the Schola Progenium shortly after confirmation of the parents' deaths in service. Within these institutions, the children are raised collectively under a rigid educational structure designed to reinforce loyalty to the Emperor of Mankind, above all other considerations. Religious doctrine from the ecclesiarchy forms a core component of the curriculum. The Emperor is presented not merely as the ruler of humanity, but as a divine protector whose will governs the survival of the species across a hostile galaxy. The educational environment of the Schola Progenium is deliberately harsh. Discipline is maintained through strict oversight by instructors known as progena, individuals tasked with shaping the moral and intellectual development of the students. Punishments for disobedience are severe but consistent with Imperial doctrine. The objective is not merely to educate, but to condition absolute obedience and unwavering faith. Students within the Schola Progenium are exposed to a wide range of academic disciplines including Imperial history, theology, strategic theory, and administrative procedures. However, physical training forms an equally important component of the program. The young recruits undergo daily conditioning routines designed to assess endurance, reflexes, and adaptability under stress. From an early age, the progeny begin identifying individuals who demonstrate unusual aptitude in combat simulations and tactical reasoning. These individuals are gradually separated into advanced training groups, where they are exposed to increasingly demanding exercises. The purpose of this process is to determine which students possess the qualities required for service within the Militarum Tempestus. Selection for Tempestus training is extremely competitive. Only a small percentage of Schola Progenium students are deemed suitable candidates. Those chosen are typically individuals who demonstrate exceptional discipline, high intelligence, strong physical conditioning, and the ability to function effectively within small coordinated teams. Candidates who pass the preliminary selection stage are transferred to specialized training facilities operated by the Militarum Tempestus. These facilities are distributed across several secure Imperial worlds, including Terra itself and other strategically significant planets whose locations are often withheld from public record. Upon arrival at these academies, recruits begin a new phase of training that surpasses the intensity of their previous education. The objective is to transform promising students into fully capable stormtroopers, capable of operating independently in hostile environments. Training within the Militarum Tempestus academies focuses heavily on small unit tactics and rapid assault operations. Recruits are taught to deploy through a variety of insertion methods including grav-chute drops, aerial transport deployment, and armoured vehicle infiltration. Exercises simulate combat within urban environments, void stations, jungle terrain, and subterranean structures commonly encountered across Imperial battlefields. In addition to physical conditioning and combat training, recruits undergo extensive instruction in weapon systems commonly employed by the Tempestus Scions. These include high-energy las weapon variants, plasma weaponry, and other specialized equipment designed for precision engagements. Psychological conditioning also forms a major component of the program. Recruits are trained to maintain operational focus even when confronted with extreme battlefield conditions, such as overwhelming enemy numbers, catastrophic environmental damage, or the presence of entities considered terrifying by ordinary human standards. Throughout this training period, instructors maintain strict performance evaluations. Recruits who fail to meet the required standards may be reassigned to other Imperial institutions or, in some cases, transferred into standard Astra Militarum regiments where their training still provides above-average capability. Those who succeed in completing the full training regimen are formally inducted into the ranks of the Tempestus Scions. At this stage, they are assigned to operational units known as Tempestus Scion Squads, which operate under the command of officers drawn from the same training institutions. The physical characteristics of Tempestus Scions reflect the demanding nature of their upbringing. Most reach full adulthood having undergone years of rigorous conditioning that produces soldiers of exceptional endurance and reflex capability. Their height and weight vary depending on their world of origin, as the Schola Progenium recruits from across the Imperium's vast population. However, they generally exhibit lean and muscular physiques, optimized for mobility rather than sheer mass. Their appearance often reflects the disciplined environment in which they were raised. Hair is typically kept short for practical reasons. Scars from training accidents or battlefield engagements are common among veteran scions. Tattoos are less common, but may occasionally appear as unit identifiers or marks commemorating significant campaigns. Age at the time of deployment typically falls within early adulthood. though experienced veterans may remain active for decades, depending on survival rates and the needs of the Imperium. Given the dangerous missions assigned to them, long careers within the Militarum Tempestus are relatively rare compared to standard Astra Militarum service. Ethnic backgrounds among Tempestus Scions vary widely because the Schola Progenium draws recruits from countless Imperial worlds. This diversity reflects the Imperium's immense population, which spans millions of inhabited planets and produces a constant supply of potential candidates. Despite their varied origins, the cultural identity of Tempestus Scions is largely defined by the institutions that trained them. Their loyalty is directed primarily toward the Emperor and the Imperium as a whole, rather than any specific homeworld. This characteristic allows them to operate seamlessly alongside Imperial forces from vastly different planetary cultures. The chain of command governing Tempestus Scions is organised under the Militarum Tempestus, a specialised branch operating within the broader Astra Militarum command structure. Officers leading these formations are known as Tempesters and Tempester Primes, individuals who have completed the same rigorous training programs as the soldiers they command. These officers are responsible for coordinating Scion deployments with larger Imperial battle groups. Their units are frequently attached to conventional Astra Militarum regiments or other Imperial military forces when specialised operations are required. The strategic role of Tempestus Scions within the Imperium's military doctrine centres on rapid response and precision strike capability. Unlike standard Imperial Guard units, which often rely on overwhelming numbers and sustained artillery support, Scions operate in small, highly coordinated teams capable of executing targeted missions. Examples of such missions include eliminating enemy command structures, sabotaging key infrastructure, securing strategic locations ahead of larger Imperial advances, and conducting high-risk reconnaissance within hostile territory. This operational doctrine reflects the Imperium's recognition that certain battlefield situations demand highly specialised troops capable of adapting quickly to changing conditions. Tempestus Scions represent one of the Imperium's most reliable solutions to these challenges. Their reputation among other Imperial forces reflects this role. Many Astra Militarum officers view the arrival of Tempestus Scion units as an indication that the situation at hand requires extraordinary measures. Their presence often signals the beginning of highly focused military operations aimed at achieving decisive results. At the same time, their elite status sometimes creates distance between Scions and standard Imperial Guard regiments. While they frequently fight alongside conventional troops, their specialised training and equipment set them apart within the broader military hierarchy. Despite this separation, Tempestus Scions ultimately remain soldiers of the Astra Militarum. Their purpose is not to replace the massive infantry armies that form the backbone of Imperial warfare, but to complement them by executing missions that demand exceptional precision and discipline. Their creation through the Schola Progenium system ensures that they embody the ideological values the Imperium seeks to instill in its most dedicated servants. From childhood, they are taught that survival of humanity depends on unwavering loyalty to the Emperor and the institutions that govern the Imperium. This ideological foundation, combined with years of specialised combat training, produces soldiers capable of performing tasks that would be impossible for less disciplined forces. The Imperium relies on such individuals to confront threats ranging from rebellious planetary governors to alien warlords and heretical cults spreading through densely populated hive cities. Over the centuries since their formal organisation, the Tempestus Scions have participated in countless military campaigns across the galaxy. Their contributions range from small covert operations that altered the outcome of planetary wars to large-scale assaults supporting major Imperial offensives. While their numbers remain relatively small compared to the vast armies of the Astra Militarum, their influence on battlefield outcomes has ensured their continued prominence within Imperial military doctrine. By the time a soldier completes the full journey from orphaned child of the Schola Progenium to fully trained Tempestus Scion, the transformation is profound. What begins as a vulnerable survivor of Imperial conflict becomes a highly disciplined warrior shaped by the Imperium's most demanding training systems. This process, repeated across generations of recruits drawn from every corner of the Imperium, has produced one of the most respected elite infantry forces in the Emperor's domain. The operational effectiveness of the Tempestus Scions is not solely the result of their upbringing within the Schola Progenium or their demanding training under the Militarum Tempestus academies. Their battlefield reputation is equally tied to a combination of distinctive traits, specialized equipment, and advanced war gear issued exclusively to their formations. These tools are designed to maximize their ability to perform precision strike missions under conditions that would severely degrade the effectiveness of conventional Astra Militarum units. Among the defining characteristics of the Tempestus Scions is their emphasis on disciplined coordination within small tactical groups. Unlike standard Imperial Guard infantry formations that often deploy in large platoons or companies supported by massed artillery and armoured vehicles, Scion units typically operate in compact squads consisting of several highly trained soldiers led by a Tempester. Each individual within the unit is trained to fulfill multiple battlefield roles if necessary, allowing the squad to continue operating even after sustaining casualties. Their tactical doctrine prioritizes speed, accuracy, and coordinated strikes against critical targets. Because of this, Tempestus Scions are frequently deployed through rapid insertion methods that allow them to reach locations inaccessible to conventional forces. One of the most common insertion techniques involves the use of grav-chute deployment systems. These devices enable Scion units to drop from high-altitude transport aircraft, descending rapidly toward the battlefield while maintaining control of their landing trajectory. Grav-chutes rely on anti-gravitational field generators to slow descent during the final stage of the drop, allowing the soldiers to land with minimal injury even while carrying significant combat equipment. Such deployment methods require both advanced equipment and exceptional physical conditioning. Tempestus Scions train extensively to perform combat operations immediately after landing, often within seconds of touching the ground. This ability to transition instantly from aerial insertion to coordinated ground assault is one of the traits that distinguishes them from ordinary Astra Militarum forces. Another distinctive feature of Tempestus Scion formations is the specialized armor issued to their troops. Known as carapace armor, this protective equipment provides significantly greater defense than the flak armor commonly worn by standard Imperial Guard infantry. Carapace armor consists of layered composite plates designed to disperse the kinetic energy of incoming projectiles while maintaining flexibility for rapid movement. The armor typically covers the torso, shoulders, arms, and legs, forming a rigid yet mobile shell around the soldier's body. The materials used in its construction include ceramite-based composites and reinforced synthetic fibers capable of resisting fragmentation from explosive weapons and deflecting lower-power ballistic rounds. While it cannot reliably stop heavy weapon fire or armor-piercing munitions, it provides a crucial level of protection during the rapid assault operations that define Scion deployments. Integrated into the armor system are environmental seals and connection points for various life support accessories. These features allow Tempestus Scions to operate within hazardous environments such as chemical battlefields, vacuum-exposed void stations, or heavily contaminated industrial zones. Respirator units attached to the helmet can filter toxic airborne particles while maintaining clear communication between squad members. The helmet itself is an important component of the Scion Combat Ensemble. Designed to interface with internal communication networks, it contains a built-in Vox transmitter and receiver that allow squad members to maintain constant contact during operations. The helmet's optical systems include low-light enhancement lenses and targeting data displays, enabling soldiers to track enemy movement in conditions where visibility is extremely limited. These optical systems can integrate with targeting data transmitted from squad leaders or supporting Imperial forces. In coordinated assaults involving multiple Scion units, this capability allows individual soldiers to maintain awareness of friendly positions and priority targets even within chaotic battlefield environments. Another distinctive trait of the Tempestus Scions is their standard issue weapon, the hotshot lasgun. This weapon represents an advanced variant of the lasgun commonly used by the Astra Militarum. While traditional lasguns rely on relatively low-power energy discharges designed for reliability and ease of maintenance, the hotshot lasgun is engineered to produce significantly more powerful laser pulses capable of penetrating heavier armor. The increased power of the weapon is achieved through the use of specialized external power packs connected directly to the rifle. These packs supply higher energy output than the compact charge cells used by standard lasguns. As a result, the hotshot lasgun can deliver concentrated bursts capable of burning through protective armor worn by many enemy infantry forces. The design of the weapon emphasizes precision. Its reinforced barrel assembly helps manage the heat produced by repeated high-energy discharges. Additional stabilization components reduce recoil and vibration, allowing Scions to maintain accurate fire during rapid engagements. The external power pack connected to the hotshot lasgun is significantly larger than a typical lasgun charge cell. It is usually worn on the soldier's back and connected to the weapon through a reinforced cable. While this configuration increases the weapon's overall power output, it also requires careful energy management during extended engagements. Because of the heavy power consumption involved, Scion squads train to fire in controlled bursts rather than sustained volleys. This disciplined approach ensures that each shot has a high probability of striking its intended target while preserving available energy reserves. In addition to the standard hotshot lasgun, Tempestus Scion squads have access to a range of specialized weapons designed for specific battlefield roles. These include plasma guns, which discharge superheated plasma capable of melting heavily armored targets. Plasma weapons are powerful but unstable, requiring careful handling by trained operators to avoid catastrophic overheating. Meltaguns represent another weapon frequently issued to Scion units during missions requiring anti-armor capability. These weapons project concentrated thermal energy capable of liquefying metallic surfaces, making them effective against enemy vehicles, fortified structures, and heavily armored infantry. Grenade launchers also appear within Scion formations. These weapons provide flexible tactical options by allowing the operator to fire a variety of explosive projectiles, including fragmentation grenades, armor-piercing rounds, and specialized munitions designed for crowd suppression or area denial. Some Scion squads are equipped with volley guns, a distinctive heavy weapon variant specifically designed for the Militarum Tempestus. The hotshot volley gun functions as a rapid-fire energy weapon capable of delivering sustained bursts of high-powered laser fire. Its design includes multiple emitter chambers, allowing it to fire successive shots in quick sequence without the overheating problems associated with single-emitter LAS weapons. While heavier than the standard hotshotless gun, the volley gun provides valuable suppressive capability during assault operations. It allows Scion squads to pin enemy forces in place, while other members maneuver into advantageous firing positions. Another piece of specialized equipment commonly associated with Tempestus Scions is the grav chute deployment system mentioned earlier. These devices are worn as compact packs integrated into the soldier's armor harness. During high-altitude insertion operations, the grav chute generates a localized anti-gravity field that reduces descent velocity and stabilizes the user's trajectory. The system is designed to activate automatically at predetermined altitudes or manually when the soldier initiates deployment. This technology allows Scion units to perform precision drops into contested areas where conventional landing craft would be vulnerable to enemy defenses. Transportation support for Tempestus Scions is frequently provided by the Taurox Prime armored vehicle. This specialized transport variant is designed specifically for Militarum Tempestus operations. It features reinforced armor plating and a powerful engine capable of maintaining high speed across rough terrain. The Taurox Prime typically carries a squad of Scions into battle, while providing additional fire support through turret-mounted weapons. These weapons may include autocannons, missile launchers, or high-energy weapon systems depending on the mission profile. The vehicle's internal layout is optimized for rapid deployment, allowing soldiers to disembark quickly once they reach their target zone. Another distinctive feature of Tempestus Scion operations is the extensive communication infrastructure supporting their missions. Each squad maintains constant contact with command elements through encrypted Vox channels. This communication network allows Tempestus Primes to coordinate multiple squads simultaneously during complex operations. Such coordination enables Scion forces to perform synchronized strikes against multiple objectives within a narrow time window. For example, one squad may disable enemy communications while another eliminates command personnel, and a third secures key infrastructure. By executing these actions simultaneously, the Scions can destabilize enemy defenses before conventional Imperial forces begin their main assault. Their equipment also includes a variety of auxiliary tools used during specialized missions. These tools may include demolition charges for destroying fortified structures, Auspex scanners for detecting hidden enemies, and data capture devices used to retrieve information from enemy installations. Tempestus Scions are also trained in the use of combat knives and other close-quarters weapons. Although their doctrine emphasizes ranged precision strikes, battlefield conditions sometimes require silent eliminations or defensive engagements at extremely close range. Their training ensures they remain effective even when deprived of their primary firearms. The distinctive traits of the Tempestus Scions extend beyond their equipment into their behavioral patterns during combat. They are trained to maintain composure under extreme pressure, often advancing through intense enemy fire without hesitation when ordered to secure an objective. This psychological resilience is reinforced through years of conditioning during their time in the Schola Progenium and the Militarum Tempestus academies. The training emphasizes obedience to command structures and the prioritization of mission success above personal survival. Observers within the Astra Militarum frequently note that Scion squads operate with an efficiency that appears almost mechanical. Movements are deliberate, communication is concise, and each soldier performs their assigned role with minimal deviation from established tactical doctrine. These qualities allow Tempestus Scions to function as a highly reliable tool within the Imperium's vast military apparatus. Their presence on the battlefield often indicates that Imperial commanders intend to execute a precise and decisive operation rather than relying solely on overwhelming force. The combination of rigorous training, specialized armor, advanced weaponry, and disciplined coordination has ensured that the Tempestus Scions remain among the most capable human soldiers available to the Imperium of Man. Their distinctive traits and equipment are carefully designed to support a specific style of warfare built around speed, precision, and unwavering loyalty to the Emperor. The psychological profile of the Tempestus Scions reflects the institutions responsible for their upbringing. From early childhood within the Schola Progenium, the students who would eventually become Scions are conditioned within an environment designed to cultivate unwavering loyalty, strict discipline, and emotional restraint. The purpose of this upbringing is not only to produce competent soldiers, but also individuals capable of maintaining operational focus in situations that would normally overwhelm human morale. Many Tempestus Scions display a personality structure characterized by controlled emotional expression and strong adherence to authority. Years of religious and military instruction instill a worldview centered on service to the Emperor and the preservation of the Imperium of Man. This ideological framework forms the foundation of their identity. Personal ambitions or individual recognition rarely occupy a central place in their thinking. Instead, duty and obedience dominate their sense of purpose. This mentality develops gradually during their time within the Schola Progenium. Instructors reinforce the belief that the survival of humanity depends on the sacrifices of loyal servants. Children raised under this doctrine are repeatedly exposed to stories describing heroic acts performed by Imperial soldiers, saints of the ecclesiarchy, and historical figures who demonstrated absolute devotion to the Emperor. These narratives are presented not merely as history, but as behavioral examples that the students are expected to emulate. When candidates are selected for Militarum Tempestus training, this ideological foundation becomes integrated with a new emphasis on operational discipline. Recruits learn that hesitation or emotional instability can endanger an entire squad during high-risk missions. Because Tempestus Scion units operate in small formations often far behind enemy lines, every member must remain psychologically stable even when confronted with overwhelming threats. As a result, many Scions develop a quiet, controlled demeanour. Observers frequently describe them as composed and methodical rather than aggressive or boastful. Their speech patterns tend to be direct and concise, reflecting the communication protocols emphasized during their training. Conversations within Scion units often revolve around mission objectives, tactical considerations, or logistical requirements rather than personal matters. Despite this reserved personality profile, Tempestus Scions are not devoid of individual identity. Variations in background and experience can produce differences in behaviour between soldiers. Some display a dry sense of humour expressed through brief remarks shared within their squad. Others maintain a more formal demeanour consistent with their institutional upbringing. The shared hardships of training and combat create strong bonds between squad members. These relationships resemble the cohesion observed in other elite military units throughout the Imperium. Loyalty to one's squad becomes a powerful motivational factor during combat operations. A Scion may endure extreme danger not only out of devotion to the Emperor, but also from a determination to support the soldiers fighting beside them. Their psychological conditioning also includes preparation for encountering enemies that evoke instinctive human fear. The Imperium of Man faces threats ranging from alien species with unfamiliar physiologies to entities associated with the warp whose presence can destabilize the human mind. Tempestus Scions receive specialized instruction designed to minimize panic when confronting such adversaries. This preparation involves repeated exposure to combat simulations depicting various hostile forces known to the Imperium. Recruits learn to respond with disciplined tactical actions rather than emotional reactions. While this training cannot completely eliminate fear, it equips Scions with methods for maintaining operational control even in extreme circumstances. Within the broader structure of the Imperium's military forces, the Tempestus Scions occupy a unique organisational position. They serve as elite shock troops under the authority of the Militarum Tempestus, which functions as a specialised command branch within the wider Astra Militarum. Although they remain part of the Imperial Guard military hierarchy, their training, equipment and deployment patterns distinguish them from conventional infantry regiments. The leadership structure within the Militarum Tempestus mirrors the disciplined culture of the Scions themselves. Squad leaders hold the rank of Tempesta, individuals responsible for directing the actions of their units during combat. These leaders are selected from among the most capable Scions and receive additional training in command tactics, battlefield coordination, and strategic planning. Above them are officers known as Tempesta Primes. These commanders oversee multiple squads and coordinate their deployment during complex operations. Tempesta Primes often maintain close communication with Astra Militarum High Command, or with other Imperial institutions requesting Scion support. The Militarum Tempestus operates under strict administrative oversight from the Adeptus Administratum, which manages the logistical and bureaucratic aspects of Imperial military forces. This relationship ensures that Scion units receive the necessary equipment, transport and operational directives required to fulfill their missions. At the same time, the Militarum Tempestus maintains strong institutional ties to the Schola Progenium. The academies responsible for training Scions rely on the Schola system as their primary source of recruits. This connection ensures a continuous flow of candidates who have already been conditioned to accept the values and doctrines necessary for service within the elite formations. The organisational alignment of the Tempestus Scions also places them in close proximity to several other powerful Imperial institutions. Because their capabilities make them ideal for precision strikes and high-risk operations, they are frequently assigned to assist branches such as the Inquisition, the Adeptus Mechanicus, or the Adeptus Arbites when specialised military support is required. In these situations, Scion squads may operate as temporary attachments to forces commanded by officials outside the Astra Militarum chain of command. For example, an Inquisitor investigating heretical activity on a remote world might request the assistance of a Scion unit to perform targeted arrests or eliminate particularly dangerous adversaries. Similarly, the Adeptus Mechanicus may request Scion support during expeditions aimed at recovering lost technological artifacts or defending vital research installations from hostile forces. In such missions, the Scions provide disciplined infantry capable of protecting Mechanicus personnel while navigating dangerous environments. Despite these cross-institutional deployments, the Tempestus Scions remain firmly rooted within the Imperial Guard military structure. Their primary purpose is to serve as an elite component of the Astra Militarum's vast war machine. They are deployed when Imperial commanders require troops capable of achieving specific objectives quickly and with minimal margin for failure. Their presence within a campaign often signals that the Imperial command structure has identified a critical target requiring precision rather than sheer numerical force. Examples may include the capture of an enemy command bunker, the destruction of a strategic communications facility, or the neutralization of a dangerous individual whose survival could prolong a conflict. Tempestus Scions frequently perform these tasks before the main Imperial assault begins. By disabling key defensive systems or eliminating leadership elements within an opposing force, they create opportunities for larger Astra Militarum formations to advance with reduced resistance. The culture surrounding the Tempestus Scions emphasizes quiet professionalism rather than public recognition. Unlike some other Imperial institutions whose members achieve legendary status across the Imperium, Scions often complete their missions without widespread acknowledgement. Their operations may remain classified within Administratum archives or recorded only in restricted military reports. This lack of public recognition aligns with the philosophy instilled during their training. The soldiers themselves are taught that personal glory is irrelevant compared to the success of the mission. In many cases, the broader population of the Imperium may never learn that Tempestus Scions played a decisive role in protecting their world. The operational lifespan of a Scion varies depending on the intensity of the conflicts in which they participate. Because they are frequently assigned to the most dangerous missions available to the Astra Militarum, casualties within their ranks can be significant over time. Nevertheless, the Schola Progenium system continuously produces new candidates capable of replenishing their numbers. Veterans who survive extended service often become instructors within the Militarum Tempestus academies or advance into leadership roles overseeing future generations of Scions. Their battlefield experience becomes an important component of the training programs used to prepare new recruits. From a broader analytical perspective, the Tempestus Scions represent a deliberate solution developed by the Imperium of Man to address the limitations of conventional mass infantry warfare. The Astra Militarum is capable of fielding enormous armies composed of billions of soldiers drawn from countless planets. However, sheer numbers alone cannot solve every tactical problem encountered across the Imperium's vast territories. Certain operations demand troops capable of precision movement, rapid decision-making, and disciplined coordination within small units. The Tempestus Scions fulfill this requirement by combining the ideological conditioning of the Schola Progenium with specialized military training and advanced equipment. Their existence also demonstrates the Imperium's ability to produce elite human soldiers without relying on genetic modification or the extensive biological enhancements associated with the Adeptus Astartes. While Space Marines remain vastly superior in physical capability, they are relatively few in number compared to the immense scale of the Imperium. Tempestus Scions therefore occupy a strategic middle ground within the Imperial military hierarchy. They provide a level of skill and equipment far beyond that of ordinary Imperial Guard troops, while remaining numerous enough to be deployed across a wide range of battlefronts. Over centuries of warfare, their contributions have shaped numerous campaigns throughout the galaxy. Whether conducting covert reconnaissance, striking key installations, or reinforcing beleaguered Imperial positions, the Tempestus Scions continue to serve as one of the Imperium's most reliable instruments of precise military force. Their personality traits, organizational structure, and operational doctrine all reflect the same central objective. Every aspect of their existence is designed to produce disciplined soldiers capable of carrying out difficult missions with efficiency and loyalty. Within the vast machinery of the Imperium of Man, Where billions of soldiers fight and die across countless battlefields, the Tempestus Scions represent a focused expression of the Imperium's determination to maintain control through skill, discipline, and unwavering devotion to the Emperor. Records preserved within the logistical archives of the Adeptus Administratum contain numerous references to specialized Astra Militarum formations, whose operational statistics differ significantly from those of standard Imperial Guard regiments. When Administratum auditors review long-term campaign reports spanning multiple centuries of Imperial warfare, a recurring classification appears in several operational datasets. These formations consistently demonstrate lower average deployment size, higher mission success percentages in precision engagements, and casualty ratios that differ sharply from those of mass infantry units. After repeated cross-referencing between campaign records, requisition manifests, and deployment orders, Administratum analysts have identified the formations responsible for these patterns as the soldiers of the Militarum Tempestus, specifically the elite infantry forces known as the Tempestus Scions. From the perspective of the Adeptus Administratum, the Tempestus Scions represent a highly specialized logistical asset rather than a conventional standing army. Their numbers are significantly smaller than those of ordinary Astra Militarum regiments, but their missions often influence the outcome of entire planetary campaigns. Administratum reports frequently emphasize that Scion units are not designed to hold extended front lines or participate in prolonged siege warfare. Instead, their purpose lies in performing targeted operations that alter the strategic environment before the main Imperial war effort unfolds. Administratum data clerks tasked with maintaining the Imperium's vast military ledgers often describe Scion deployments using terms associated with strategic force multipliers. These soldiers are inserted into situations where the elimination of a single target or the disruption of a single system can shift the balance of power across an entire conflict zone. Logistical analysis conducted by the Administratum reveals that the operational value of a Tempestus Scion squad often exceeds that of several conventional infantry platoons when measured by mission impact rather than battlefield territory captured. Such conclusions appear repeatedly in archived campaign summaries, where Scion interventions resulted in the collapse of enemy command networks or the destruction of key strategic assets. The Adeptus Administratum's logistical documentation also highlights the unusual cost structure associated with maintaining the Militarum Tempestus. Training a Tempestus Scion requires years of investment beginning within the Schola Progenium system and continuing through specialized academies. This process involves extensive physical conditioning, combat simulation exercises, weapons training, and ideological indoctrination. From a purely bureaucratic perspective, the resource expenditure required to produce a single fully trained Scion is substantially higher than that required to equip and deploy a standard Imperial Guardsman. Administratum accounting records note the additional costs associated with specialized equipment such as carapace armor, grave chute deployment systems, and hotshot lass weaponry. Despite these expenses, the Administratum continues to authorize funding for the Militarum Tempestus due to the long-term operational benefits documented in campaign analytics. Several centuries of battlefield data indicate that Scion units consistently achieve mission objectives in situations where ordinary infantry forces would likely fail or suffer catastrophic casualties. For Administratum analysts responsible for maintaining strategic projections across the Imperium's military theatres, this reliability has significant implications. The ability to deploy a small number of elite soldiers capable of completing high-risk operations allows Imperial commanders to conserve resources that would otherwise be consumed by large-scale assaults. This efficiency becomes particularly valuable during campaigns conducted on worlds with limited infrastructure, or during conflicts where Imperial supply lines remain unstable. In such scenarios, the rapid deployment of Tempestus Scions can neutralize threats before the Imperium commits vast quantities of personnel and equipment. Administratum records frequently reference the role of the Militarum Tempestus in securing strategic objectives ahead of major Astra Militarum offensives. When a planetary invasion begins, Scion squads may be inserted behind enemy lines to disable orbital defense systems, capture communication hubs, or eliminate enemy leadership figures. Once these objectives are completed, the main Imperial invasion force can proceed with significantly reduced resistance. From the perspective of Administratum logistics, this sequence represents an efficient use of manpower and material. By investing heavily in a small elite formation, the Imperium reduces the overall cost of planetary conquest in both resources and human lives. Parallel to the Administratum's logistical evaluations, the Adeptus Mechanicus maintains its own analytical records concerning the equipment and operational technology used by the Tempestus Scions. The Mechanicus views these soldiers not only as military personnel but also as field operators of specialized technological systems developed within the forges of Mars and other forge worlds. Mechanicus reports frequently focus on the performance of the advanced weaponry and armor issued to Scion formations. The hotshot lasgun, for example, has been the subject of extensive study within Mechanicus engineering archives. Tech priests have documented the weapon's ability to deliver higher energy output than standard lasguns, while maintaining a relatively compact design suitable for mobile infantry. According to Mechanicus technical analysis, the increased power of the hotshot lasgun derives from its external power pack configuration. This system allows the weapon to draw from a larger energy reserve than traditional charge cells, producing concentrated laser bursts capable of penetrating armor that would resist conventional lasgun fire. Mechanicus engineers responsible for maintaining these systems have noted that the weapon's power output places considerable stress on internal components. As a result, the hotshot lasgun requires careful calibration and regular maintenance to prevent degradation of its emitter assemblies. Tempestus Scions receive specialized instruction in maintaining their weapons under battlefield conditions. Mechanicus reports indicate that this training significantly reduces equipment failure rates during extended operations. From the perspective of the tech priests, the reliability of these weapons in Scion hands represents an ideal balance between advanced technology and disciplined user training. The Adeptus Mechanicus also conducts ongoing evaluations of the carapace armor worn by Tempestus Scions. This armor system incorporates layered composite plates capable of absorbing and dispersing the impact of incoming projectiles. Mechanicus material studies have concluded that the armor provides a substantial increase in survivability compared to the flak armor worn by standard Imperial Guard soldiers. However, Mechanicus documentation also acknowledges the limitations of the system. While effective against shrapnel and lower power ballistic weapons, carapace armor cannot reliably withstand heavy weapons fire or direct impacts from armor-piercing rounds. For this reason, Scion tactical doctrine emphasizes mobility and precision rather than prolonged exposure to enemy fire. Gravshoot technology represents another area of significant Mechanicus interest. These devices rely on anti-gravitational field generators derived from ancient technological principles preserved within the Mechanicus sacred archives. The Gravshoot allows Tempestus Scions to perform high-altitude insertions with remarkable accuracy, landing in confined spaces where conventional drop troops might suffer severe injury. Mechanicus engineers have documented the operational tolerances of these systems in considerable detail. The Gravshoot must activate within a precise altitude range to ensure a safe descent trajectory. Improper calibration or environmental interference can disrupt the device's anti-gravity field, potentially resulting in fatal descent speeds. Because of these risks, Scions undergo repeated training exercises designed to familiarize them with the precise timing required during Gravshoot deployment. Mechanicus observers assigned to training academies have recorded a high level of proficiency among Scion recruits when operating these systems, further reinforcing the Mechanicus view that human discipline remains a critical component of technological reliability. Transportation technology associated with the Tempestus Scions has also drawn considerable attention from Mechanicus analysts. The Taurox Prime armoured vehicle, commonly used to transport Scion squads, incorporates several design features tailored specifically for rapid assault operations. Mechanicus schematics describe the Taurox Prime as a heavily armoured transport platform equipped with a powerful engine and reinforced suspension system capable of maintaining high speed across difficult terrain. Its internal troop compartment is configured to allow soldiers to disembark quickly during combat engagements. The vehicle's weapon systems vary depending on mission requirements, but frequently include turret-mounted autocannons or high-energy weapons designed to support Scion infantry during rapid assaults. Mechanicus maintenance logs show that Torok's prime vehicles assigned to Militarum Tempestus formations receive regular servicing from tech priest personnel to ensure optimal performance. From a technological perspective, the Adeptus Mechanicus views the equipment issued to Tempestus Scions as a demonstration of how advanced Imperial technology can be effectively integrated with disciplined human operators. The tech priests frequently emphasize that many of the Imperium's most sophisticated weapon systems require skilled users capable of maintaining them under battlefield conditions. Scions, with their rigorous training and strong institutional discipline, fulfill this requirement in a manner that aligns with Mechanicus operational doctrine. For this reason, several Mechanicus reports recommend continued collaboration between Forge Worlds and the Militarum Tempestus in the development of new infantry weapon systems. In addition to evaluating equipment performance, both the Adeptus Administratum and the Adeptus Mechanicus conduct periodic statistical reviews of Scion deployment patterns. These analyses reveal that Tempestus Scions are frequently assigned to missions involving the protection or recovery of technologically significant assets. In situations where Imperial forces attempt to reclaim lost Mechanicus facilities or secure ancient technological relics, Scion units often serve as the primary infantry force responsible for entering contested areas and establishing a secure perimeter. Their ability to operate effectively in small squads makes them well suited for navigating the confined corridors of research installations, void stations, or subterranean complexes. Administratum records indicate that these types of missions carry a high strategic priority because the recovery of lost technology can significantly strengthen the Imperium's military capabilities. The reliability of the Tempestus Scions in such operations has reinforced their reputation among both Administratum officials and Mechanicus engineers as one of the Imperium's most dependable elite forces. Taken together, the evaluations produced by these two powerful institutions provide a clear analytical picture of the Tempestus Scions' role within the Imperium. To the Adeptus Administratum, they represent an efficient and strategically valuable military asset, capable of altering the course of entire campaigns through precise intervention. To the Adeptus Mechanicus, they serve as disciplined operators of advanced technological systems, demonstrating how carefully trained human soldiers can maximize the effectiveness of the Imperium's sacred wargear. These perspectives, recorded across countless logistical reports and engineering analyses, reinforce the conclusion that the Tempestus Scions occupy a unique position within the Imperium's vast military structure. Their existence reflects a deliberate balance between technological sophistication, institutional discipline, and strategic necessity within the Imperium of Man. Administratum or archives record the participation of Tempestus Scion formations across a wide range of Imperial military campaigns. Although their numbers remain relatively limited compared to the immense scale of the Astra Militarum, these elite units frequently appear within operational logs tied to decisive or unusually complex engagements. Their deployments are typically associated with situations requiring precision infiltration, rapid disruption of enemy command structures, or the neutralization of critical strategic targets. One of the earliest widely documented instances of Tempestus Scion participation appears within the war records of the conflict known as the Second War for Armageddon. This war occurred during the closing years of the 41st millennium, when the industrial hive world of Armageddon faced invasion by a massive orc warhost under the leadership of the warlord Gazgukal Throlka. The scale of the invasion required the mobilization of enormous Imperial forces, including Space Marine chapters, Astra Militarum regiments, and various other Imperial institutions. Within the extensive battle logs compiled by the Adeptus Administratum, several references appear describing the deployment of Militarum Tempestus units to reinforce Imperial defensive operations during key stages of the war. These units were primarily tasked with targeted operations intended to disrupt Orc command nodes and sabotaged the logistical structures supporting the Greenskin invasion. Reports describe Scion squads being inserted via high-altitude, grav-chute deployment into industrial sectors of Armageddon, where Orc forces had established fortified staging areas. Their mission objectives included disabling captured Imperial communications arrays and destroying supply depots that were being repurposed by Orc engineers. One particular report describes a coordinated assault carried out by multiple Scion squads against a fortified manufactorum complex located near one of the Hive city outskirts. Intelligence gathered by Imperial reconnaissance forces indicated that Orc warbands had converted the facility into a central assembly point for armoured vehicles and improvised war machines. Tempestus Scion units infiltrated the surrounding districts under cover of night and advanced toward the structure using concealed movement through partially collapsed industrial corridors. Once in position, demolition charges were placed at several structural points within the manufactorum. The resulting explosions disabled the facility and destroyed large quantities of enemy equipment before Orc reinforcements could arrive. Administratum Analyses later concluded that the destruction of this facility significantly reduced the operational mobility of Orc forces within that sector of the battlefield. The incident illustrates the strategic function commonly assigned to Scion formations during large-scale Imperial conflicts. Another significant campaign involving Tempestus Scions occurred during the protracted conflict known as the Third War for Armageddon. This later invasion once again brought the forces of Ghazghkull Throika to the planet, triggering one of the largest military mobilizations in Imperial history. The war involved massive armoured engagements, extensive urban combat, and prolonged defensive actions across multiple Hive cities. During this conflict, Tempestus Scion units were frequently deployed to conduct rapid insertion operations behind advancing Orc formations. Administratum records describe these missions as attempts to destabilize enemy command structures before major Imperial counteroffensives. One such operation involved the capture of a communications relay tower that Orc forces had seized during their initial advance across the wasteland surrounding Hive Hell's Reach. The tower served as an improvised command hub used by Orc warbands to coordinate attacks against Imperial defensive lines. A Scion strike force deployed from a high-altitude transport executed a grav-chute drop several kilometers from the tower. The squad advanced across desert terrain during the night before launching a coordinated assault on the facility. The operation resulted in the destruction of the communications equipment and the elimination of the Orc commanders present at the site. Although the scale of the battle surrounding Hive Hell's Reach dwarfed the actions of individual Scion squads, Administratum records emphasize that such operations played an important role in weakening the coordination of Orc attacks during the war. Tempestus Scion units also appear frequently within campaign logs describing conflicts against Chaos forces. One particularly notable engagement occurred during a series of Imperial counteroffensives launched against heretical uprisings on several frontier worlds within the Segmentum Obscurus. Administratum reports from this campaign describe the presence of a fortified stronghold controlled by a chaos-aligned cult that had seized control of a planetary communication hub. The structure served as the central node through which the cult coordinated attacks on nearby Imperial settlements. Because the stronghold was heavily defended and located within densely constructed urban terrain, conventional Astra Militarum regiments would have faced severe casualties attempting a direct assault. Imperial command therefore authorized the deployment of Tempestus Scion units, tasked with neutralizing the cult leadership before the cult could organize further resistance. Scion squads were transported into the region using armored vehicles before infiltrating the outer districts of the city. Intelligence sources had identified several entrances to the underground infrastructure connecting the communication hub to nearby industrial sectors. The Scions advanced through these subterranean passages before emerging inside the compound itself. The resulting engagement was brief but intense. Administratum casualty reports indicate that the Scion squads successfully eliminated several key cult leaders and destroyed the primary communications equipment within the facility. With the command structure of the cult effectively dismantled, conventional Astra Militarum forces were able to move into the city and secure the surrounding districts with minimal resistance. Administratum analysts later cited this operation as an example of how small elite formations can drastically reduce the cost of urban warfare. Another campaign frequently cited in Militarum Tempestus records occurred during Imperial operations against the Tau Empire along the eastern borders of Imperial territory. During one particular engagement, Imperial forces attempted to reclaim a strategic outpost that had fallen under Tau control. The outpost served as a sensor array capable of tracking Imperial fleet movements through the surrounding star systems. Because the installation was located within mountainous terrain heavily defended by Tau firepower, a conventional ground assault would have been extremely difficult. Tempestus Scions were therefore deployed as the primary assault force tasked with infiltrating the facility. Transport aircraft delivered the Scion units above the mountain range under cover of heavy atmospheric interference caused by the region's unstable weather systems. Using grav-chute deployment systems, the Scions descended onto high ridges overlooking the outpost. From there, they advanced toward the installation using the natural terrain for cover. Administratum reports indicate that the Scions engaged several Tau defensive positions before breaching the outer perimeter of the facility. Once inside, demolition charges were placed along the power conduits supporting the sensor array. The resulting explosions destroyed the installation's central systems, rendering the outpost inoperable before Tau reinforcements could respond. Imperial fleet commanders later confirmed that the destruction of this sensor array allowed several Imperial warships to move through the region without immediate detection by Tau surveillance networks. Beyond these large-scale campaigns, Tempestus Scions frequently participate in smaller operations that receive less public attention within the Imperium's vast military archives. These missions often involve the suppression of rebellions on isolated planets, or the elimination of dangerous individuals whose survival could destabilize entire regions. Administratum documentation includes several examples of Scion deployments targeting rogue planetary governors who had attempted to sever their worlds from Imperial authority. In such cases, the Scions were tasked with infiltrating heavily guarded palaces or command bunkers to remove the leadership responsible for the rebellion. One archived operation describes a Scion strike team entering the capital hive of a rebellious mining world during the early stages of a planetary uprising. The squad advanced through maintenance tunnels beneath the hive structure before reaching the governor's private command chamber. The engagement lasted only a short period of time before the governor and his immediate supporters were neutralized. With their leadership removed, the remaining rebel forces quickly collapsed once loyalist Astra Militarum regiments arrived in orbit. Operations of this nature demonstrate the strategic function that Tempestus Scions fulfill within Imperial military doctrine. Rather than engaging in prolonged battlefield confrontations, their missions focus on removing critical components of enemy infrastructure or leadership. Administratum records show that this approach can drastically shorten conflicts that might otherwise continue for years. When enemy coordination collapses, opposing forces often lose the ability to mount organized resistance. Another category of Scion operations involves defensive missions intended to protect important Imperial installations from hostile incursions. Several Mechanicus research facilities and strategic manufacturing complexes maintain permanent Scion detachments tasked with responding to sudden threats. During one recorded incident, a Forge World research station experienced a sudden attack by unidentified raiders attempting to steal valuable technological artifacts. The facility's security systems triggered an emergency response that brought several nearby Scion squads into action. The Scions engaged the attackers within the narrow corridors of the research complex, using their training in close-quarters combat to contain the intruders. Administratum reports indicate that the attackers were eventually eliminated before they could escape with the targeted artifacts. Mechanicus representatives later noted that the presence of Scion units at the facility prevented the loss of several pieces of ancient technology, whose recovery might have been impossible if they had been removed from the planet. Across centuries of Imperial warfare, examples such as these appear repeatedly within the Administratum's extensive military archives. Although individual Scion operations rarely involve large numbers of soldiers, their effects frequently extend far beyond the scale of the units involved. When analysed collectively, these records reveal a consistent pattern. Tempestus Scions are deployed at moments when precise and decisive action can produce outcomes disproportionate to the size of the force involved. Through targeted infiltration, coordinated assaults, and disciplined combat execution, they alter the course of battles that would otherwise require far greater resources to resolve. For the Adeptus Administratum and the broader Astra Militarum command structure, the documented wars and conflicts involving the Tempestus Scions confirm the continued strategic value of maintaining these elite formations within the Imperium's vast military apparatus. Imperial campaign archives maintained by the Adeptus Administratum contain numerous battle records in which the presence of Tempestus Scion formations appears during the most decisive phases of a conflict. When these records are reviewed in aggregate, a consistent pattern becomes visible. Scion units are rarely deployed as the primary combat force responsible for occupying territory or sustaining long defensive lines. Instead, their battlefield activity is concentrated around moments when a campaign reaches a critical transition point, requiring precise intervention. Administratum logisticians responsible for analysing these war records frequently categorize Tempestus Scion deployments as catalyst operations. These missions are designed to trigger larger strategic outcomes through targeted actions conducted by relatively small forces. In several instances recorded within Imperial military archives, the arrival of a Scion strike team coincides with the collapse of enemy command structures, the destruction of key infrastructure, or the sudden disruption of hostile supply networks. One series of campaign logs originating from the Segmentum Pacificus describes a prolonged conflict against a coalition of renegade planetary defense forces that had declared independence from Imperial authority. The rebellion had persisted for several standard years due to the defensive advantages enjoyed by the insurgents, who occupied heavily fortified hive cities supported by orbital defense platforms. Conventional Astra Militarum forces struggled to make significant progress because the rebel command network was distributed across multiple fortified installations. Administratum documentation indicates that the turning point occurred when several Tempestus Scion squads were inserted into the hive city's lower infrastructure network through a combination of grav-chute deployment and subterranean infiltration routes. Their objective was to identify and disable a central communications hub that coordinated the rebel command structure across multiple defensive sectors. Once inside the network, the Scion squads advanced through maintenance tunnels and abandoned transit corridors until they reached the central communications facility. Demolition charges were placed along the core power distribution system supporting the relay arrays. When the explosives detonated, the resulting destruction severed the data channels linking the rebel commanders across the city. The immediate aftermath recorded in Administratum reports describes widespread confusion among the insurgent forces. Without reliable communication, individual defensive sectors began operating independently rather than as a coordinated military network. Within days of the communications collapse, Imperial armoured regiments launched a series of assaults that breached several key defensive lines. The rebellion ended shortly afterward, as isolated pockets of resistance were overwhelmed by the advancing Astra Militarum forces. Administratum analysts later concluded that the Scion operation reduced what might have been a decade-long urban siege into a campaign lasting only a few months. Another frequently cited battle record originates from a conflict involving an orc invasion of an industrial agri-world located along a major Imperial trade route. The orc warbands had constructed several fortified vehicle assembly yards where captured machinery was repurposed into crude armoured war machines. These facilities allowed the greenskin forces to sustain their advance across the planet's agricultural regions. Conventional bombing raids conducted by Imperial aircraft proved ineffective due to the extensive anti-aircraft weaponry installed around the assembly yards. As a result, Imperial Command authorized a ground infiltration mission conducted by Tempestus Scion units. The battle logs describe how several Scion squads were delivered to remote regions surrounding the orc installations before advancing toward the facilities under cover of darkness. Their training allowed them to move undetected through terrain littered with abandoned farming equipment and partially destroyed infrastructure. Upon reaching the perimeter of the primary assembly yard, The Scions engaged Orc sentries using precision fire from hotshot las guns. The squads then entered the facility and placed demolition charges along several large fuel storage tanks and mechanical assembly structures used to construct the Orc vehicles. The subsequent explosions triggered a chain reaction that ignited fuel reserves across the yard, destroying hundreds of partially assembled war machines. Administratum records state that the destruction of this facility severely reduced the Orc forces' ability to maintain mechanized assaults across the region. Following the loss of their vehicle production capacity, the Orc warbands were forced to rely primarily on infantry assaults. This shift in battlefield dynamics allowed Imperial artillery units and armoured regiments to regain control of the surrounding territories. Mechanicus observers later reviewed the battlefield remains of the destroyed assembly yard. Their technical reports describe extensive structural damage caused by the demolition charges, noting that the explosions had been placed with remarkable precision along key mechanical junction points. This level of accuracy demonstrated a detailed understanding of how to disable complex machinery with minimal explosive resources. Campaign records involving Chaos forces also reveal similar patterns in the deployment and aftermath of Tempestus Scion operations. One documented engagement concerns the suppression of a Chaos cult uprising on a densely populated hive world, where several industrial sectors had fallen under the control of heretical insurgents. The cult had established fortified defensive positions around a major plasma generator complex that supplied energy to multiple hive districts. Because the generator was essential to maintaining life support systems within the surrounding population zones, Imperial commanders were reluctant to launch a large-scale bombardment that might destroy the facility entirely. Instead, Tempestus Scion squads were tasked with infiltrating the complex and disabling the cult leadership controlling the site. Administratum reports describe how the Scions entered the facility through service access tunnels originally constructed by the Adeptus Mechanicus. The subsequent engagement occurred within the narrow maintenance corridors surrounding the generator's core infrastructure. Scion soldiers advanced through these passages while eliminating cult defenders who attempted to block their progress. The operation concluded with the neutralization of several high-ranking cult leaders occupying a command chamber overlooking the plasma generator control systems. Once the leadership of the cult was removed, the remaining insurgents scattered throughout the hive city and were gradually captured or eliminated by Imperial security forces. The plasma generator remained intact, allowing energy distribution to resume across the affected districts. From the perspective of the Adeptus Mechanicus, the preservation of the generator represented a critical outcome. Mechanicus engineering reports emphasize that the destruction of the facility would have required decades of reconstruction effort due to the complexity of its ancient technological components. The careful infiltration conducted by the Tempestus Scions therefore prevented the loss of vital infrastructure while simultaneously eliminating the threat posed by the Chaos cult. Mechanicus analysts cited the operation as an example of how disciplined infantry units can preserve valuable technology during conflict. Another campaign reviewed jointly by the Adeptus Administratum and the Adeptus Mechanicus involved a large-scale expedition to recover a lost research station orbiting a remote planetary system. The station had ceased communication several decades earlier and was later discovered to be occupied by hostile forces attempting to access the technological relics stored within its vaults. Imperial fleet commanders authorized a boarding operation conducted primarily by Tempestus Scion detachments. The objective was to reclaim the station's data archives and secure the technology stored within its laboratories. The battle records describe close-quarters engagements occurring throughout the station's internal corridors. Because void environments impose severe restrictions on heavy weapon usage, the Scions relied heavily on their hotshot las guns and disciplined small unit tactics. Mechanicus observers present during the operation later noted that the Scions demonstrated careful restraint when using explosive devices within sensitive laboratory sectors. This discipline prevented damage to several important technological artifacts stored within the station's research vaults. Once the hostile occupants were eliminated, Mechanicus personnel began the process of cataloguing the recovered data and equipment. Administratum reports confirm that the successful recovery of these materials contributed to several later research initiatives conducted on nearby Forge worlds. Across the many war records examined by Imperial analysts, the aftermath of Tempestus Scion operations often reveals a similar pattern of outcomes. Enemy command structures collapse following the elimination of key leaders. Critical infrastructure falls into Imperial hands without catastrophic damage. Hostile forces lose coordination and are gradually defeated by the larger Astra Militarum formations that follow. From the perspective of the Adeptus Administratum, these outcomes represent a highly efficient use of Imperial military resources. Large-scale wars within the Imperium frequently consume enormous quantities of manpower and equipment. Any strategy capable of shortening a campaign without sacrificing strategic objectives is therefore considered valuable. Administratum statisticians who track the duration and cost of military campaigns frequently highlight the influence of specialized units such as the Tempestus Scions. Although their numbers remain limited, the strategic disruptions they create often accelerate the collapse of enemy resistance. The Adeptus Mechanicus approaches this analysis from a different perspective. Rather than focusing solely on campaign duration or manpower expenditure, Mechanicus analysts examine how Scion operations affect the preservation and recovery of technological assets. Many battlefields within the Imperium contain ancient machines or industrial complexes whose destruction would represent a permanent loss of valuable knowledge. When Tempestus Scions conduct infiltration missions designed to capture or disable such facilities without destroying them, the Mechanicus benefits directly. Tech priests responsible for studying these sites frequently express approval for the precision with which Scion units execute their assignments. Mechanicus reports often emphasize the compatibility between the disciplined training of the Scions and the technological systems they operate. Advanced weapons such as the hotshot last gun, or specialized equipment such as grav chutes, require careful handling and maintenance to function reliably. The rigorous training programs of the Militarum Tempestus ensure that these tools are used effectively even under extreme battlefield conditions. When the analytical records of both institutions are considered together, a broader strategic picture emerges. The Tempestus Scions occupy a role within the Imperium's military structure that extends beyond their immediate battlefield actions. They serve as instruments through which carefully targeted operations can influence the outcome of entire campaigns. Their ability to strike quickly, operate independently, and execute complex missions with precision allows the Imperium to resolve conflicts that might otherwise consume far greater resources. Whether eliminating enemy commanders, sabotaging industrial production, or securing valuable technological assets, the Scions repeatedly demonstrate the effectiveness of disciplined elite infantry within the vast machinery of Imperial warfare. From the perspective of the Adeptus Administratum, the continued investment required to train and equip Tempestus Scions is justified by the strategic advantages they provide. From the viewpoint of the Adeptus Mechanicus, these soldiers represent reliable operators capable of protecting and recovering the sacred technologies upon which the Imperium depends. Together, these conclusions form the basis of the final analytical assessments recorded within Imperial archives. The Tempestus Scions remain a small but indispensable component of the Imperium's military system, functioning as a precise instrument applied at critical moments within the long and complex wars that define the survival of humanity. Within the sealed archives of the Inquisition, references to Tempestus Scion formations appear in numerous investigative records compiled during investigations into heresy, xenos infiltration, and other threats to the Imperium of Man. Although the Militarum Tempestus operates primarily under the authority of the Astra Militarum command structure, Inquisitors frequently request the assistance of Scion units when conducting operations that require disciplined infantry capable of rapid, decisive action. Inquisitorial documentation often describes Tempestus Scions as among the most dependable human soldiers available for assignments involving sensitive investigations. Unlike many conventional Astra Militarum regiments, Scion formations are composed of individuals raised within the Schola Progenium system. This upbringing ensures a high degree of ideological loyalty to the Emperor and the Imperium, a trait valued by inquisitors who must rely on their soldiers to remain resistant to corruption and psychological manipulation. Because of this reputation, Scion units frequently appear within Inquisition case files concerning suspected cult activity or the presence of individuals believed to be influenced by the powers of the warp. The Inquisition typically deploys these units to secure locations where potentially dangerous evidence or hostile individuals are believed to be present. One such investigative record describes an inquisitorial operation conducted on an industrial hive world where reports had emerged of unusual disappearances within the lower manufacturing sectors. Local authorities had initially attributed the incidents to criminal activity or workplace accidents. However, further investigation by the Ordo Hereticus suggested the possible presence of a hidden cult operating within the region. The Inquisitor overseeing the investigation requested the support of several Tempestus Scions squads to conduct a controlled sweep of the suspected area. According to the sealed report, the Scions entered the lower hive sectors through maintenance tunnels that connected several abandoned manufactorum districts. As the squads advanced through the darkened corridors, they encountered signs of ritual activity consistent with cult behavior documented in previous heresy investigations. Symbols associated with forbidden warp entities had been carved into machinery and structural walls. The presence of these markings confirmed the Inquisition's suspicion that the disappearances were linked to cult operations rather than conventional criminal activity. The Scions proceeded with the systematic clearing of several underground chambers that had been converted into meeting sites for the cult members. During the operation, multiple individuals were apprehended and transferred to inquisitorial custody for interrogation. However, the report also contains references to unusual observations made by several Scion soldiers during the operation. Witness statements describe brief fluctuations in environmental conditions that could not be easily explained by the surrounding infrastructure. In several cases, the soldiers reported sudden drops in temperature and unexplained distortions in visual perception while passing through certain sections of the tunnels. The inquisitorial report does not provide a definitive explanation for these phenomena. Instead, the observations are recorded as potential indicators of warp influence within the area prior to the cult's discovery. The Scion units involved in the operation continued to function effectively despite these conditions, maintaining operational discipline until the area had been secured. In another Inquisition archive, an investigative case file from the Order Xenos describes the involvement of Tempestus Scions during an operation on a remote frontier world suspected of harboring xenos infiltration. The planet in question had recently experienced a series of unexplained communication failures across several mining settlements. Local planetary authorities initially assumed that the disruptions were caused by environmental interference affecting the communications grid. However, a deeper investigation conducted by the Ordo Xenos uncovered evidence suggesting the presence of non-human technology operating within the region. To investigate the situation, the Inquisitor assigned to the case deployed a Tempestus Scion reconnaissance unit to survey the affected settlements. The Scions advanced through a mountainous region where several mining installations had recently been abandoned by their workers. Within one of the deserted facilities, the soldiers discovered evidence of technological structures not consistent with Imperial engineering practices. Several metallic constructs embedded within the rock formations appeared to be generating electromagnetic disturbances that interfered with communication systems. Mechanicus specialists later identified these devices as remnants of xenos technology of uncertain origin. The Scion unit secured the site until additional Inquisition personnel arrived to conduct further examination. During the initial survey, however, one of the Scion squads reported an unusual phenomenon while approaching the central chamber containing the devices. According to the recorded testimony, several soldiers experienced brief auditory disturbances resembling faint mechanical signals transmitted at frequencies not normally detectable by human hearing. The inquisitorial report acknowledges that these signals were not recorded by standard Auspex scanners carried by the squad. Nevertheless, the soldiers involved described the sensation as a persistent background sound that ceased once the xenos devices were deactivated. Although no definitive explanation for the phenomenon was provided, the report includes a note from the investigating Inquisitor, suggesting that the devices may have been emitting communication signals intended for other unknown receivers. The Scions' proximity to the devices may have allowed them to perceive fragments of these transmissions through unknown mechanisms. A separate Inquisition record from the Ordo Malleus references the involvement of Tempestus Scion units during a containment operation conducted on a space station orbiting an isolated Imperial world. The station had served as a research facility studying warp navigation anomalies before communication with its personnel abruptly ceased. Because of the potential involvement of warp entities, the Inquisition authorized a boarding operation conducted by several Scion squads, accompanied by specialized investigators. The objective was to determine the cause of the station's silence and secure any surviving personnel. Upon entering the facility, the Scions encountered extensive damage within several research sectors. Laboratory equipment had been overturned and structural panels torn from their mountings. However, no immediate evidence of hostile life forms was detected within the station's corridors. As the soldiers progressed deeper into the research complex, they discovered a sealed chamber containing experimental equipment used to monitor fluctuations within the warp. According to the Inquisition report, several instruments had recorded unusually strong energy signatures shortly before the station's communication systems failed. During the investigation of this chamber, members of the Scion squad reported experiencing brief sensations of disorientation, accompanied by visual distortions along the edges of their vision. These effects lasted only a few seconds and did not prevent the soldiers from continuing their mission. The report does not confirm the presence of any warp entity within the station at the time of the investigation. Nevertheless, the unusual readings recorded by the research equipment and the sensations described by the Scions are noted as possible evidence that a transient warp anomaly had occurred within the facility. Inquisition records often emphasize that Tempestus Scions display an unusual degree of psychological resilience during operations involving such phenomena. Many soldiers serving in conventional Imperial Guard regiments would likely experience panic or loss of combat effectiveness when confronted with unexplained environmental disturbances or signs of warp influence. Scion units, however, appear capable of maintaining composure even when encountering events that challenge conventional understanding. Inquisitorial observers frequently attribute this stability to the extensive psychological conditioning provided during their upbringing within the Schola Progenium and their subsequent training within the Militarum Tempestus academies. Despite this resilience, the Inquisition continues to monitor Scion units, carefully following operations involving warp-related phenomena. Standard procedure requires that soldiers exposed to such conditions undergo medical and psychological evaluations to ensure that no lingering corruption has taken hold. Another observation recorded within several Inquisition reports concerns the remarkable consistency of Scion operational discipline, even when operating under direct inquisitorial command. In many instances, Scion squads assigned to assist Inquisitors demonstrate a level of coordination comparable to their performance under Astra Militarum leadership. This consistency has led some Inquisitors to rely heavily on Scion detachments during sensitive investigations. Their ability to operate with precision and restraint reduces the risk of uncontrolled violence during operations where valuable evidence must be preserved. At the same time, the Inquisition recognizes that the Militarum Tempestus remains a separate institution within the Imperium's vast bureaucratic hierarchy. While Scion units can be requisitioned for inquisitorial missions, they ultimately remain soldiers of the Astra Militarum rather than permanent agents of the Inquisition. Several inquisitorial memoranda note that this distinction helps maintain the balance of power between Imperial institutions. Scions provide military strength when needed, but they do not possess the independent authority granted to Inquisitors themselves. Taken collectively, the observations contained within Inquisition archives present a detailed picture of how Tempestus Scions function during investigations involving unusual or unexplained circumstances. Their discipline, training, and loyalty make them valuable assets when confronting threats that combine conventional warfare with elements of heresy, xenos interference, or warp influence. The unexplained phenomena occasionally recorded during these operations remain subjects of ongoing study within the Inquisition's sealed records. While definitive explanations are not always available, the presence of Tempestus Scion units during such events ensures that the Imperium retains capable soldiers ready to confront dangers that lie beyond the limits of ordinary understanding. Within the classified repositories maintained by the Inquisition, a number of sealed reports describe encounters involving Tempestus Scion units that extend beyond the scope of ordinary battlefield engagements. These documents are often compiled after operations in which the original mission objective intersects with phenomena that cannot be fully explained by conventional Imperial military analysis. While the Scions themselves remain soldiers of the Astra Militarum, their frequent involvement in high-risk investigations has resulted in their presence within several inquisitorial case archives involving unusual anomalies. One such record originates from an Ordo Hereticus investigation conducted on a shrine world located within the Segmentum Solar. The planet in question had long been considered a stable centre of Imperial faith, with its population devoted almost entirely to the worship of the Emperor through ecclesiastical institutions. However, a sequence of unexplained disappearances among the clergy prompted the Inquisition to dispatch investigators to determine whether the incidents were the result of hidden heretical activity. Tempestus Scion units were assigned to support the investigation by securing several underground chambers beneath one of the world's oldest cathedral complexes. These chambers had originally served as storage vaults for relics recovered from earlier crusades. According to historical records, many of these artifacts had not been examined for centuries. During the initial sweep of the vault corridors, Scion squads encountered evidence that several sealed chambers had been opened without authorization. The doors to these chambers displayed signs of forced entry, despite their ancient locking mechanisms remaining intact. Inside, investigators discovered that several relic containers had been disturbed or removed entirely. While searching the surrounding corridors, members of the Scion team reported hearing faint vocal sounds echoing through the stone passageways. The voices appeared to originate from deeper sections of the vault network that were believed to have collapsed centuries earlier due to structural damage. Upon reaching the location where the sounds seemed to originate, the Scions found only solid rock walls and debris from previous collapses. Auspex scans conducted by the squad detected no void spaces or hidden chambers beyond the visible barriers. Despite this, the auditory phenomena reportedly continued for several minutes before gradually fading. The inquisitorial report recorded these events without offering a definitive explanation. Some investigators speculated that the relics stored within the vaults may have possessed latent warp associations capable of producing sensory distortions under certain conditions. However, no direct evidence confirming this theory was recovered during the operation. A separate case file from the Ordo Xenos details an encounter between Tempestus Scion forces and an unidentified biological organism discovered during an exploratory mission on an uninhabited world near the eastern fringe of Imperial territory. The planet had previously attracted attention due to the presence of mineral formations that interfered with long-range Auspex signals. An inquisitorial survey team accompanied by a Scion detachment was dispatched to investigate whether these mineral deposits might conceal xenos technology or other threats. The Scions established a perimeter around the landing zone, while the survey team conducted geological analysis of the surrounding terrain. During the second day of the expedition, one of the Scion patrol teams reported encountering unusual organic structures, emerging from the surface of a shallow canyon several kilometers from the main camp. These structures resembled clusters of fibrous growths extending upward from the rock formations. When the patrol approached the area, the structures began to retract slowly into the ground. The Scions attempted to capture samples using cutting tools and containment equipment, but the growths withdrew into narrow crevices that were too small for human access. Auspex scans detected faint biological readings beneath the rock layer, suggesting that the structures were part of a larger organism located beneath the canyon floor. despite extensive excavation attempts conducted later by Mechanicus specialists, the organism itself was never recovered. The inquisitorial report categorizes the encounter as a probable example of unknown xenos biology. The scions assigned to the patrol did not suffer any injuries during the event, but their observations remain the only direct record of the organism's existence. Another sealed document from the Ordo Malleus references a Tempestus Scion deployment during a containment operation on a remote research outpost where a warp anomaly had been detected. The outpost was operated by a group of sanctioned Imperial scholars studying fluctuations within local warp currents. According to the initial distress signal transmitted by the facility, several researchers had experienced unexplained disturbances shortly before communication with the station abruptly ceased. Because of the potential involvement of warp entities, the Inquisition authorized a rapid response operation involving a Scion strike team. Upon arrival, the Scions entered the facility through an external docking corridor that had been left partially open. The interior environment showed signs of disarray but no immediate evidence of large-scale combat. Research instruments had been abandoned in mid-operation, and several data terminals displayed partially recorded warp readings. As the Scions advanced through the laboratory sections, they discovered several areas where localized gravitational distortions appeared to be affecting the station's internal structure. Loose objects floated briefly in midair before falling back to the floor as the distortions fluctuated. During the search for surviving personnel, one squad encountered a chamber containing a device designed to measure fluctuations in the warp. The device's display panels were still active, showing data spikes far beyond the normal thresholds recorded by similar equipment. According to the Scion squad leader's report, several members of the team experienced brief visual distortions while standing near the device. These distortions included momentary shifts in color perception and the appearance of moving shadows within otherwise empty sections of the room. Despite these anomalies, the Scions completed a systematic search of the station and recovered the bodies of several researchers who appeared to have died from causes that could not be immediately determined. No hostile entities were encountered during the operation. The inquisitorial conclusion suggests that a temporary warp fluctuation may have affected the research facility before dissipating prior to the arrival of the Scion unit. However, the precise nature of the anomaly remains unresolved. Other sealed reports describe encounters involving unidentified technological artifacts discovered during Scion operations on abandoned battlefields. One such artifact was recovered from the ruins of a fortress complex destroyed during an earlier Imperial campaign against a renegade faction. While conducting a routine search of the ruins, a Scion patrol discovered a metallic object partially buried beneath collapsed debris. The object measured approximately 1 meter in length and was constructed from an alloy not immediately recognizable by standard Imperial classification systems. When the Scions attempted to move the object, several members of the squad reported experiencing brief auditory sensations resembling low-frequency vibrations. These sensations ceased once the object was placed inside a containment unit for transport. The artifact was later transferred to Mechanicus custody for examination. Preliminary analysis indicated that the alloy contained structural properties inconsistent with known Imperial or common xenos materials. The object's purpose remains unknown, and its internal structure has proven difficult to analyze due to the density of its outer shell. Inquisition archivists catalogued the discovery under a restricted classification pending further study by Mechanicus researchers. The Scion squad involved in the recovery was cleared of any contamination following standard inquisitorial screening procedures. Across the numerous sealed reports stored within Inquisition archives, Tempestus Scion units appear repeatedly in situations where disciplined military personnel are required to confront events that fall outside the expectations of ordinary warfare. Their ability to maintain composure while encountering unexplained phenomena has made them valuable participants in investigations involving both xenos threats and possible warp activity. Despite these experiences, the majority of Scion soldiers remain largely unaware of the full extent of the Inquisition's investigations. Many of the events they witness are later classified within sealed archives, accessible only to inquisitorial authorities and select members of other Imperial institutions. For the Scions themselves, such missions are treated as extensions of their standard duty to the Imperium. They receive orders, execute their objectives with precision, and withdraw once the mission has been completed. The deeper implications of the anomalies they encounter often remain hidden within the restricted records of the Inquisition. Within those records, however, the repeated presence of Tempestus Scion formations in unusual circumstances has become a notable pattern. Whether confronting hidden cults, investigating xenos artifacts, or entering facilities affected by warp disturbances, these elite soldiers frequently serve as the Imperium's first line of contact with phenomena that defy easy explanation. Within the most restricted archives of the Inquisition, the operational history of the Tempestus Scions appears repeatedly across thousands of classified records. These files, compiled by various ordos across multiple centuries, rarely focus on the Scions themselves as primary subjects of investigation. Instead, the soldiers of the Militarum Tempestus often appear as the operational instruments through which the Inquisition conducts missions that require disciplined military intervention under highly controlled circumstances. The Inquisition's reliance on Tempestus Scion detachments is documented across a wide range of classified operations. In many of these cases, Scion units are deployed during investigations where the presence of conventional Astra Militarum forces would be considered excessive or unpredictable. The smaller size and specialized training of Scion formations allow Inquisitors to conduct targeted operations without drawing widespread attention from local authorities or civilian populations. One category of classified file concerns containment missions involving suspected warp disturbances. These incidents often begin with reports of unusual environmental phenomena, unexplained disappearances, or the sudden collapse of communications within isolated facilities. In such circumstances, the Inquisition frequently requests the deployment of Tempestus Scion squads to secure the affected locations before full investigative teams arrive. Several archived reports describe Scion units entering research facilities, orbital stations, or remote installations where warp-related anomalies had been detected. In these operations, the Scions typically serve as the initial containment force responsible for stabilizing the situation and ensuring that any potential threats remain confined within the affected area. In many cases, the soldiers involved in these missions encounter conditions that are not immediately understood, even by the inquisitorial authorities directing the investigation. Reports describe fluctuations in temperature, brief distortions in visual perception, and unexplained electronic interference affecting standard military equipment. While such phenomena are often associated with warp activity, the Inquisition rarely records definitive conclusions regarding their exact nature. Instead, these observations are preserved within classified records for further analysis by specialists within the Ordo Malleus and other relevant branches of the Inquisition. Another group of classified files concerns operations involving the recovery or containment of unidentified technological artifacts. Tempestus Scions frequently participate in these missions due to their ability to conduct controlled tactical operations within unstable or hazardous environments. In several documented cases, Scion squads have been tasked with securing sites where unusual devices or materials were discovered during previous military campaigns. These artifacts often display properties inconsistent with known Imperial technology, or even with previously catalogued xenos equipment. Upon securing such objects, Scion units typically establish defensive perimeters, while representatives of the Adeptus Mechanicus conduct preliminary examinations. The soldiers involved in these operations are rarely informed of the full significance of the artifacts they protect. The Inquisition maintains strict compartmentalization regarding the knowledge associated with such discoveries. Once the objects are transferred to Mechanicus or inquisitorial research facilities, the Scion units assigned to the operation are usually reassigned to unrelated missions without further explanation. Among the most restricted documents within Inquisition archives are those relating to incidents in which Tempestus Scion units have encountered phenomena that cannot be easily categorized as either technological or warp-based. These reports often contain conflicting observations recorded by different members of the same squad. One such document describes a Scion team conducting a search of a deserted manufactorum complex following reports of unexplained energy readings. During the operation, several soldiers reported witnessing brief movements within the surrounding machinery, despite the absence of any detectable life signs. Other members of the squad observed no such movement, even while occupying positions within the same chamber. Auspex scanners failed to record any mechanical activity or biological presence during the period in which the sightings occurred. The report concludes with the recommendation that the incident be classified as an unexplained anomaly, pending further investigation. No additional evidence was recovered to confirm or refute the soldiers' observations. Another classified file describes an encounter during a patrol mission on a remote frontier world where a Scion squad discovered a structure partially buried beneath the planet's surface. The structure appeared to be constructed from metallic components arranged in geometric patterns that did not correspond to known architectural designs. When the soldiers approached the structure, their communication equipment experienced intermittent interference. Several members of the squad reported hearing faint tones transmitted through their helmet audio systems, even though no signals were being received by standard communications channels. The tones ceased when the squad withdrew from the immediate area surrounding the structure. Later attempts by Mechanicus investigators to locate the structure were unsuccessful. The region where it had been observed showed no evidence of excavation or construction. The signed squad leader's report was preserved within the Inquisition archives, though the absence of physical evidence prevented further analysis of the incident. Other classified files involve situations in which Tempestus Scion units have entered locations that appeared to contain remnants of events that had not yet occurred according to conventional chronological records. These rare reports are typically associated with investigations conducted by the Ordo Malleus into warp disturbances capable of altering localized perceptions of time. In one such incident, a Scion patrol exploring the remains of an abandoned outpost reported discovering several bodies wearing Imperial Guard uniforms identical to their own. Upon closer examination, the soldiers determined that the equipment carried by the bodies matched the configuration issued to their own unit. However, the patrol leader noted that the individuals had died under circumstances suggesting a firefight that had not yet taken place within the surrounding facility. No hostile forces were present at the time of the discovery. The Inquisition's report regarding the event proposes that a localized warp distortion may have briefly exposed the squad to a potential future timeline before the anomaly stabilized. No further manifestations of the phenomenon were recorded during the remainder of the operation. While such reports remain rare, they illustrate the types of situations in which Tempestus Scion units may find themselves when operating under inquisitorial authority. Their role in these encounters is not to interpret the phenomena they observe, but rather to maintain operational discipline and complete the assigned objective. The Inquisition's evaluation of Tempestus Scions across centuries of classified records presents a consistent assessment of their effectiveness. Among the countless soldiers serving the Imperium, Scions are considered uniquely suited for operations requiring absolute obedience to mission parameters, combined with the ability to function in environments where conventional military logic may not fully apply. Their upbringing within the Schola Progenium system instills a deeply ingrained loyalty to Imperial authority, while their training within the Militarum Tempestus emphasizes tactical precision and emotional restraint. These characteristics allow Scion units to maintain order and effectiveness even when confronted with circumstances that would likely cause confusion or panic among less disciplined forces. From the perspective of the Inquisition, this reliability makes Tempestus Scions valuable assets in investigations where secrecy and operational control are essential. Their presence ensures that potentially dangerous locations can be secured quickly, while inquisitorial personnel conduct more specialized examinations. At the same time, the Inquisition recognizes that the Scions themselves remain largely unaware of the broader implications of the missions they undertake. The classified nature of many investigations prevents the soldiers involved from learning the full significance of the anomalies or artifacts they encounter. This deliberate separation between knowledge and duty serves an important function within the Imperium's vast structure of authority. The Scions execute their orders with precision, while the responsibility for interpreting the meaning of what they have witnessed rests with the Inquisition. Within the sealed vaults of inquisitorial archives, the accumulated reports involving Tempestus Scion units form a quiet record of encounters with phenomena that challenge the Imperium's understanding of the galaxy. From unexplained technological artifacts to fleeting warp disturbances and encounters with unidentified biological entities, these soldiers have repeatedly stood at the boundary between known reality and the unknown forces that surround humanity. The final assessment recorded within several inquisitorial summaries remains consistent. Tempestus Scions are not investigators, scholars, or archivists. They are soldiers trained to confront danger wherever it appears. Yet through their repeated presence in these classified records, they have become silent witnesses to some of the Imperium's most unusual discoveries. Their role is not to explain these mysteries, but to ensure that the Imperium survives long enough for those explanations to be pursued by others within its vast and secretive institutions.